As we approach the 4-year anniversary of Dobbs, the Supreme Court ruling that ended Roe v. Wade, Republican Senator Susan Collins has been asked to revisit her part that she played in that fateful decision. Collins spoke with reporters last week where she addressed her controversial vote to confirm Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. She said, quote, "I do not regret that vote." But in that same press conference, Collins said she disagreed with Kavanaugh's eventual vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Morris Katz is back with us. So I'm interested in these comments, but I'm also interested in them and in the greater context of what the liabilities are for the two different candidates. Because in some sense, these kinds of comments from Susan Collins, I think they're kind of already baked in, right? Like, the voters of Maine know about the whole controversy regarding her saying that she thought that Brett Kavanaugh respected precedent and wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. On the other hand, you have Graham Plattner, who your organization is representing, and there still seem to be a lot of, like, unknowns about him. What assurances can you give that there will not be yet more unflattering stories from his past that come out? He has said there's nothing left to worry about. There's not going to be another shoe to drop. But that's not quite the same thing as it actually happening, because there has been sort of this drip of scandals that have come out from his past.
Look, I think that one critical difference, she had taken the Brett Kavanaugh vote at the time of the last election. Roe had not yet been overturned when she was last on the ballot. And I think there are a lot of Mainers who had voted for Susan Collins many times, who felt like they knew Susan Collins, who felt like they could trust Susan Collins, who have now been lied to by Susan Collins. And I think there is a massive, massive difference in her being on the ballot at a time that Roe is no longer the law of the land because of a vote she took. And I think Mainers are going to hold her accountable for that vote. I also think Mainers feel like they know Graham Plattner, who has had, I think it's now 88 town halls. And Susan Collins, I don't know if Susan Collins has had a town hall since I've been alive. The last time she held a town hall, Graham Plattner, was in 8th grade. So Mainers have gotten to interact with Graham on this personal level time after time again, while Susan Collins hides in her nice mansion that her lobbyist husband bought for her. And I think that there is a fundamental issue here of trust. And Mainers now know Graham Plattner, and they trust Graham Plattner. And Susan Collins, I think, with that vote to put Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, with that vote to end Roe as the law of the land, has broken that trust in a way that cannot be rebuilt.
But has it been negated by all of the allegations against Plattner, which there may be more coming? Can you say that there are not going to be more women coming forward with similar unflattering allegations against Graham Plattner?
What I can say is that Graham Plattner has addressed his past repeatedly, more than I've ever seen any candidate have to talk about their past. And he's been honest.
Well, that might be because he has a lot of problems, Morris.
No, I think it's because he's talked about, been very honestly and openly about not being the world's greatest boyfriend when he got home from war, about struggling with PTSD, with depression, with drinking too much, with going down dark rabbit holes on the internet. And he's also been honest about what is false, that has been, allegations that have came out against him and false accusations. I think that there's things that, are not seen by the public, which is the level of effort, money, and kind of frenzy around digging up things of Graham's past, which, as someone who works in politics, goes beyond anything I've seen, of people knocking on doors in Maine.
He gives them so much fodder. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. It goes back to vetting. And I want to ask you, at what point is it disqualifying, do you think, some of the things that have happened in this race and in the back?
What I think, though, is when the way we talk about what scandals are or what issues are on kind of national television or in the political establishment is fundamentally disconnected from the lives Mainers are living. Like, how is it not a scandal that Susan Collins is married to a lobbyist who, while she was on the committee deciding what firms get money, gave $76 million to her husband, that she has voted to fund wars that have enriched her own stock portfolio? Susan Collins and her lobbyist husband seem like a scandal. The fact that Graham and his wife have worked through issues, like Graham posted things on the internet.
Or that had a tattoo that was, associated with Nazis, and claims that he did not know that it was as such when his previous girlfriends say that he referred to it as his totem cloth.
And the Marines he served with in the war that Susan Collins sent them to fight say as much.
Why haven't Marines that he served with intimately? I have not. I've read through a lot of press.
The Washington Post and I believe one of the New York Times articles, multiple Marines came forward.
They got the tattoo with him.
Yes,
we got
were
the
there
tattoo.
at the time. Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you really quickly, Ken, if I can, about Graham Plattner's position here and the concern you might have that he may end up like a John Fetterman. Is that something that you're worried about? Because John Fetterman at one point had this populist kind of like, bro, I'm a working guy with the shorts. Everybody fell for it. Yeah, I mean, we're almost out of time, but give me your final thought on that.
A former client. I think that Graham Plattner is exactly who he's telling Mainers he is. He's someone who's going to spend every single day fighting for them, fighting to take on a broken Washington establishment, to take on the status quo, to deliver a new kind of government that serves working people. And I think that's exactly why you're seeing the establishment go so hard after him.
And you're confident he's anti-war?
That Graham Plattner is anti-war? Yes, I'm very confident because he's seen firsthand the repercussions of wars that Susan Collins voted to send him.
He went back and went back as a mercenary, too.
I think that there are a lot of young men who feel a call to serve their country and are taken advantage of by a political establishment that profits off of the violence they witness firsthand.
But you're taking away their agency, too.
I think that I would rather hold the politicians who vote to start wars accountable than the 18-year-olds who sign up to serve in them.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Plenty more to talk about. Morris Katz, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.